Hey guys, this is Rick at Tasty Guitar. Well, I can say without a doubt, what we're going to be working on today is probably the biggest thing to help me break out of an intermediate kind of level of playing into where I am today. This is probably the one thing that really helped me see the guitar neck completely and have the freedom to play everywhere. I like to refer to this as playing your space, and the basic concept is in any area on the neck, usually a span of about 4 or 5 frets, you're going to have large bar chord shapes, and we're going to break things down smaller and smaller into chord fragments, into intervals, and then see overlapping scales as well. Now, if you can see everything within one little space, you have everything at your fingertips. I'm going to demonstrate this in the context of funk rhythm playing, but you could really use this in almost any style of music as a way to visualize the neck. Today we're going to completely break down one area of the neck, show you how to combine intervals, notes from the scale, and chord fragments. But then it's really up to you to cover the entire neck. Do this space by space. If you can do this, you are going to be a master at knowing your neck and having everything at your fingertips. Make sure you come by TastyGuitar.com, get the free tab for this lesson, and check out membership in the description below. Let's get started. All right guys, let's go ahead and get started here. Now everything we're going to be doing today is going to be in the key of D. Now like I mentioned at the intro, the concept here is playing your space. Now the space that we're going to be playing in today is right around the area of the 5th fret, really actually the 4th fret to about the 8th fret. This is our space that we're going to be working out of today. Now there are 4 very important parts to being able to see the neck this way, and everything gets smaller as we go. Now the most important part here is to see the large chord shapes in whatever space you're playing in. Okay, so we're going to be doing this in the key of D, and we're doing it right down here in the area of the 5th fret. And we're going to be playing around a dominant chord family. So we're talking about your 7th chords, your 9th chords, your 13th chords. And I'm also going to be using a 6th chord, which is not a dominant chord, but it works really well in combination with the 9 chord. All right, so the first thing you want to do is find all the large chord shapes for the family of chords that you are going to be playing over. Now, since we're doing dominant chords, I'm going to start with a D7 chord right here at the 5th fret. What other D7s do I have right here? Well, I could be playing that voicing, really common for a 7th chord. There's a couple 7th chords right in this area. How about 9 chords? There's the most common 9 chord there is right there. How about a 13 chord? There's your 13 chord. And now how about a 6 chord? Make sure you know where the root is within all these voices so you can move to other keys later. Now it's crucial to see these big shapes, but not really for playing them, especially in funk and R&B and soul music. Okay, we want to be finding smaller, more manageable shapes. So the first thing you're going to do here is break things down further into chord fragments, which are 3-string little chord voicings. Now we're going to start with that same D7 chord. And what you're going to do is you're going to break it down into the notes on the middle 3 strings here. Get rid of the root. You're left with the note on the D, G, and B strings. Now we can also take the notes on the top 3 strings, the C, F sharp, and A there. Both of these are great chord fragments to use for a D7 chord. You don't necessarily need the root because the bass player is going to be covering that. Now let's break down this 7th chord. Now usually what's going to sound best here is the top 3 strings. Right there. You could play it like that, or you could play it here with your 2nd finger. The notes on the middle 3 strings just kind of make a D major triad. So, you know, you can use that as well, but you really want to get the flat 7 in there to get really the flavor of a dominant 7 chord. Okay, so far we have that, that, and that. All these crucial little chord fragments for a dominant 7 chord. Next, let's go to this 9 chord. We can break that down into the middle voices here, or the top 3 strings. Both sound great, just give you a slightly different character. How about the 13 chord there? If we take a look at the big shape, again, top 3 strings here. You can play it like that, or you can play it with your 3rd finger out there. And then finally the 6th chord. Again, the middle 3 strings just give you a major chord, a D major triad. So you really want to think of this as the top 3 strings. And everything we just played here had the root in the same place, right there, 5th fret on the A string. So again, you need to definitely internalize the location of these chord fragments relative to your root. So breaking down the 7 chord. 9, 13, and the 6th. Now what you want to do is you want to take these chord fragments that you just broke down from the larger chord shapes and try to combine them into different rhythms. Now you can combine these chord fragments any way you want to. It's all about trial and error. You can use stuff from the 7th chord together with the stuff from the 9 chord, the 9 chord with the 6 chord, any combination you like. I'm going to put together a rhythm right now and I'll come back and break it down. All right, so let's break this down slowly and see what's going on. Now I started on a move I like to call sidestepping. That is just taking the voicing which you're going to be using. This is coming right out of that 9 chord, just taking the middle 3 notes there. But I started a half step below that and then approached and kind of did a sliding move like that. Very, very common technique, especially in funk. Okay, so I started right there on the last 16th note of beat 3. 1, 2, 3. Back to the chord, slide down and back. 2, 3. Then on beat 1 of the following measure, I slid up to this shape right here, which you remember is just the top part of that D6 chord. 6th chord there with a barred 3rd finger, ending index finger barred at the 5th fret. That is just the top of our 9 chord. So guys, there is nothing complicated about this. You just got to see the chord voicings in your space and break them down into smaller shapes and combine them. Again, we're starting just by taking these 3 notes out of that 9 chord, move up to the 6th, and then the 9th at the top. It's just that easy. 1, 2, 3. And I still have all those other chord fragment shapes that we broke down earlier from those large voicings. I could have taken this 7th chord shape out of that large shape there, gone to the 9th chord or the top of that 9 chord, 13 chord, and then maybe gone back down to the 9th chord in the middle 3 voicings. So something like this. It's that easy. You just have to have a little bit of imagination and most importantly, know your space. All right guys, the next really important part of this is breaking down those chords into 2-string intervals. Okay, now in case you've never seen it, I did a lesson called Building Guitar Fills. Building Guitar Fills Part 1 shows you exactly how to do this. The easiest way to see these intervals is just inside those larger chord shapes. So think of this D7 chord right here. If I just take notes on adjacent strings, I have those 2 notes, these 2, and these 2. Now some sound better than others. The ones that I'm going to show you here are the most useful breakdowns of these chords into intervals. So the 7th chord there, people use this a lot. 5th with the flat 7 with the 3rd. Right inside that 7th chord, those intervals live. Think about this 7th chord shape. The one that you want to think about here and see is this. Right at the top. This 9 chord voicing right here, you definitely want to see this, the 3rd and flat 7, and the flat 7 and the 9. The 13 chord, you want to see the 9 with the 13, just the 2 notes on top. And take that 6 chord. Here you can either just take the root and 3rd right there, or the 3rd and the 6th. So now I'll demonstrate how you can combine some of those intervals together with those 3-note chord fragments in the context of a funk rhythm. All right guys, let's go ahead and break this one down. Now I started with that same sidestepping technique, but this time I'm taking an interval directly out of the dominant 7 chord here, just playing the C note together with the F sharp. Going to do the sidestepping, so I actually started a half step below. At the end of that beat, Did the slide up to the 7th fret there with my 3rd finger again, and that's just the top of that 6th chord again. Hold that out for an extra 16th note on the 1st beat of the next measure, and then you're going to go down to the top of the 9 chord. After that, you're just going to hit 3 scratches, and then on the 2nd 16th note of beat 2, you're going to go down to this shape right here, which again is a sidestepping move. This little interval moving here, which is just the 3rd and flat 7 of that 9 chord. Just taking those 2 notes out of there, moving there chromatically from a half step below the sidestep move. So all together we have this 2, 3. So it's just about putting these little combinations of things together, and you can come up with some incredible funk grooves very easily like this. Alright guys, the final piece of this puzzle is finding the scale which you're working out of, directly kind of overlapping with all these chords. So we're staying in the same position. Now with dominant 7th chords and that chord family, normally we're thinking of the Mixolydian mode. Here it is, right in this position. Now it depends on what you're doing, but you know, if you're just kind of playing over vamps, over kind of a funky dominant chord groove, you can also throw in notes from the minor pentatonic or blues scale. So that would be here. Now what you're going to do with the notes from the scale kind of depends on what style you're playing. If I were playing some funk rhythm type stuff, I might want to do a picking part or a skank rhythm part, and combine with those other elements, the chord fragments and the intervals. But say if I were playing over an R&B or soul ballad over a major 7 chord vamp or something like that, I would probably use the major scale and use that scale to connect maybe some intervals out of a major 7 chord. So here's the final example, just throwing in a few single notes with those intervals and chords.